The planet of Elizera was unlike anything humans had ever seen. Towering crystal spires reflected the soft glow of 3 suns, and rivers of liquid light flowed between floating gardens. The air shimmered with faint colors, and even the simplest plants seemed alive with a quiet intelligence. It was in this breathtaking world that the alien princess, heir to the throne, was struggling to survive. Her illness had arrived suddenly, as if it were a shadow creeping through her body. And no amount of alien medicine or advanced technology could halt its progress. The kingdom's finest healers and scientists worked tirelessly, but every day brought more fear, more uncertainty, and more pain. The princess, named Lizera, was known for her grace, her intelligence, and her unwavering sense of duty to her people. She had been trained to lead, to command respect, and to make difficult decisions for the good of the kingdom. But even she, with all her wisdom and strength, could not fight this illness alone. She spent her days in quiet chambers overlooking the luminous gardens, staring at the sky and wondering if she would ever see another sunrise. Her attendants moved silently around her, careful not to disturb her, but even their care could not erase the sadness in her eyes. Meanwhile, far from Elizera, a human warrior named Kale was making his way across the stars. Kale was known among humans and aliens alike for his courage, his discipline, and his unwavering sense of justice. He had faced dangers that would have terrified most beings, yet he carried himself with a calm confidence, always ready to help those in need. His journey to Elizera had been prompted by an interstellar alliance mission, a mission meant to strengthen ties between humans and the various alien civilizations. Kale had not expected to find himself in the midst of a crisis so grave, a crisis that could decide the life of a princess. When Kale arrived, the atmosphere of Elizera struck him immediately. It was beautiful, otherworldly, and yet there was a tension in the air that he could feel in his bones. The palace, a vast structure of crystal and light, hummed with activity as healers and attendants rushed about, their faces masks of concern. Kale was introduced to the Council of Elders, beings whose wisdom spanned centuries, and they explained the situation with gravity. The princess was dying, every moment counted, and the usual methods of treatment had failed. Kale listened carefully, absorbing every detail, his mind working quickly to understand how he could help. The first time Kale saw Princess Lizera, she was seated in a chamber filled with soft, glowing light. She looked small against the grandeur of the palace, fragile yet dignified. Her skin had a faint shimmer, her eyes held the depth of galaxies, and there was a quiet sadness about her that drew Kale's attention immediately. She did not speak. At first only watched him with cautious curiosity, as if trying to understand why this human had come to her world. Kale felt a strange connection, though he could not explain it. He did not seek power or recognition. He did not come with demands or expectations. All he wanted was to understand, to see if there was a way to help. The princess, Lizera, was initially wary. Humans were rare on Elizera, and most were considered fragile, unpredictable, and ill-suited for the responsibilities of the alien world. Yet something about Kale was different. There was a steadiness in his gaze, a quiet determination that spoke of inner strength. Over the next days, Kale spent time observing the princess, learning about her routines, and speaking to the healers to understand her condition. He noticed details others overlooked. The way she held her hand over her chest when pain struck, the fleeting moments when her eyes lost their usual spark, and the small, almost imperceptible sighs of exhaustion. He also noticed her courage, the way she tried to smile despite her suffering, and the moments when she tried to reassure her attendants rather than let them worry about her. Their interactions were careful at first. Lizera asked questions, measured and polite, testing his patience and his intentions. Kyle answered honestly, never hiding his human limitations, but also never diminishing his willingness to help. Slowly, a fragile trust began to form between them. Lysera began to sense that Kale's presence was different from anyone else's in her life. He was neither a court official seeking influence nor a healer bound by duty. He was someone who had come simply to stand beside her, to witness her struggle, and perhaps to share in the burden she carried alone. As Kale continued to learn about her illness, he realized its severity. This was not a minor condition that could be fixed with time or technology. It was life-threatening, and each day that passed brought new challenges. The alien healers spoke of advanced techniques, rare elements, and treatments that pushed the boundaries of their science, yet all seemed to falter in the face of her body's resistance. Kyle felt a growing sense of urgency, a need to act that went beyond protocol or duty. He began to wonder if there was something beyond the known science of Lysera, a possibility that no one had dared consider. Despite the growing tension, moments of humanity and warmth emerged. Kale shared stories of human worlds, of battles fought, of courage and hope in the face of impossible odds. Lysera, in turn, spoke of her life as a princess, her responsibilities, and the loneliness that came with her position. Slowly, laughter returned to the chamber, small but significant. For brief moments, the illness seemed to fade into the background, replaced by the spark of connection between two very different beings. And yet, the shadow of her illness always lingered. Every day was a reminder of the fragility of life, of the limits even the most advanced civilizations could not overcome. Kale knew that their time together might be limited, but he also knew that he could not leave without trying to do something more, something extraordinary. He did not yet know what that would be, but a quiet determination began to grow within him. By the end of the first week, it was clear to everyone that Kale's arrival was more than mere coincidence. The princess's condition had brought together two worlds, two species, in a way that had never happened before. What began as duty and curiosity was slowly becoming a bond built on trust, courage, and the shared hope that somehow, together, they might find a way to overcome the darkness threatening Lysera's life. As night fell over the crystalline spires of Lysera, Kyle stood near the balcony of the princess's chamber, looking out over the glowing rivers and floating gardens. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him, yet he also felt a spark of hope. For the first time since arriving, he dared to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, there was a way to save her. And in that quiet moment, beneath the three shining suns of Lysera, a promise began to form in his heart. A promise that he would do everything he could to protect the princess, no matter the cost. The days passed on Lysera with a tense rhythm. The alien princess, Lysera, grew weaker, her once bright eyes now shadowed by fatigue. The palace, though magnificent, felt heavy with worry. Healers and scientists moved quickly, speaking in hushed tones, while the Council of Elders debated endlessly. No matter how advanced the technology or how skilled the healers, the illness refused to relent. Every new treatment seemed to offer only temporary relief, and every day that passed brought fear that they were running out of time. Kale, the human warrior, watched closely. He noticed the smallest changes, the slight hesitation in Lysera's movements, the way her breathing sometimes became shallow, the tiny tremor in her hands. He spoke with the healers, asking questions, seeking answers, trying to understand if there was anything more they could do. The alien healers were brilliant, yet they admitted openly that this illness was beyond their experience. It was unlike anything they had encountered before. Their treatments slowed the sickness, but they could not cure it. One evening, the Council of Elders gathered in a grand chamber, their faces pale under the glow of the crystal lights. They presented a new possibility, though it was controversial. The princess's life could be saved, but only through a procedure that had never been attempted. It required a rare element that existed only in the life force of a human being. The process was dangerous, and the human would face serious risk. Some elders argued fiercely, questioning the morality of asking a human to sacrifice so much for an alien. Others debated whether any human would even volunteer. Lysera listened, quietly, her expression calm but her mind racing. She knew that she could not survive much longer without the procedure, yet the thought of someone giving up their life for her filled her with guilt and fear. She shook her head slightly, refusing the council's suggestion. "I cannot let anyone die for me," she said softly, her voice steady despite the weakness in her body. There must be another way. Her words carried the weight of her dignity and compassion, and everyone in the room fell silent. Kyle, standing near the back of the chamber, felt a surge of emotion. He looked at Lysera and saw not only a princess in need of help, but a being full of strength, courage, and humanity. Her determination to protect others, even in her own time of suffering, reminded him of the principles he had lived by all his life. Without hesitation, he stepped forward. The room went still as all eyes turned to him. "I will do it," he said, his voice calm but firm. "If this is the only way to save her, I will give what is needed." The council erupted in shocked murmurs. Elders shouted warnings, asking if he understood the risks. Healers insisted that such a transfer could kill him. Other humans in the room were astonished, knowing the sacrifice Kale was offering. Yet he did not flinch. His gaze remained steady on Lysera, who watched him with a mixture of surprise and disbelief. Lysera's eyes widened, and for a moment she could not speak. The idea of someone putting themselves in danger for her was almost unimaginable. Humans were rare on Lysera, and even the bravest were often seen as fragile. Yet here was Kale, offering his life so that she could live. "You don't have to do this," she whispered, a tremor in her voice. "It's too dangerous. You could die." Kale shook his head. "I am a warrior. My life has meaning only if I can help those in need. I cannot stand by and watch you suffer when I can do something about it. I will face the risk, and I accept whatever comes." His words were simple, but they carried a weight that settled over everyone in the chamber. The elders, though still concerned, saw the courage and selflessness in his decision. Slowly, the room quieted, and the council reluctantly agreed to prepare for the procedure. The next few days were filled with careful preparation. Kyle underwent tests to ensure his life force could be safely shared with the princess. Alien scientists designed protective mechanisms and rituals to minimize the risk. Every step was monitored closely, and every precaution was taken. Kale trained himself to remain calm, to focus, and to endure the strain that the process would demand. During this time, Lysera and Kale spent more time together. Their conversations were not always about illness or procedures. They spoke of their worlds, their experiences, and their dreams. Lysera told Kale about Lysera's history, the stories of rulers who had led with wisdom, and the lessons she had learned from her parents. Kale shared tales of human worlds, of struggles, victories, and the courage it takes to face impossible odds. Slowly, their bond deepened, moving beyond necessity into something that neither fully understood yet: trust, friendship, and mutual respect. Despite the growing closeness, fear remained. Every time Kale entered the chamber, Lysera wondered if she would see him again. The elders continued to discuss the procedure, weighing risks and benefits. The healers worked tirelessly to refine their methods. Every day was a delicate balance between hope and fear, and the tension was felt by all in the palace. Kyle never wavered. Even when the council voiced their doubts, when the procedure seemed too risky, he stood firm. He understood that bravery was not only about fighting battles, but also about facing the unknown, about protecting someone else at great personal cost. Lysera watched him, her admiration and gratitude growing, though her heart ached at the thought of the danger he was willing to face. One quiet night, as the 3 moons of Elisera rose in the sky, Lysera looked out over the floating gardens from her balcony. Kale joined her, silent at first, simply standing beside her. "I don't know if I can ever thank you enough," she said softly, her voice almost lost in the shimmering light. Kale placed a hand over his heart. "You don't need to thank me. All I want is for you to live, to have the chance to fulfill your role, to see another sunrise. That is enough for me." For a brief moment, the world outside faded. No illness, no counsel, no risk, just the quiet connection between 2 beings from different worlds, bound by courage and compassion. Yet the reality of the coming procedure loomed, a shadow over the moments of peace. Both knew that the next steps would test them in ways they had never imagined. As dawn approached, Lysera and Kyle returned to the chamber where the healers prepared for the life-altering procedure. The princess, though still weak, held on to a newfound hope. Kale's willingness to sacrifice, to face danger for her sake, had sparked a determination within her as well. The story of their courage and the choice before them was only beginning, but already it had changed the lives of everyone involved, leaving a mark that would not be forgotten. The palace was alive with quiet energy, the tension of anticipation, and the weight of what was about to come. Kyle was ready. Lysera, for the first time in many days, felt that perhaps she could survive, and together, despite fear and uncertainty, they prepared to face the challenge that would test the limits of courage, loyalty, and selflessness. The preparations for the procedure began in earnest. Elisera's healers worked tirelessly, their hands moving with precision over instruments that glowed with soft, pulsating light. Kale stood at the center, calm yet focused, as they explained every step of the process. The procedure would channel his life force into Lysera, strengthening her body and healing the illness that had taken root so deeply. It was delicate and dangerous work. Any mistake could cost Kale his life. The risk was immense, yet he remained steady, his determination unwavering. Lysera watched him closely. Each day she saw more clearly the depth of his courage. Kale was not just brave in battle. He was brave in a way that went far beyond what anyone had imagined. He was willing to face a challenge that defied logic, to give part of his very essence for her survival. At first she felt fear and guilt, but gradually, admiration and gratitude replaced those feelings. She realized that Kale's actions were not born of obligation or command. They came from genuine compassion and selflessness. The first step involved synchronizing Kale's energy with the alien instruments designed to safely channel his life force. The healers guided him through complex motions, asking him to focus on calm, steady breathing, to envision the energy flowing from him to the princess. Kyle followed their instructions with unwavering focus, feeling the subtle currents of energy moving through him. He sensed the connection growing stronger with each passing moment, the invisible threads of life force bridging 2 different beings from 2 very different worlds. Lysera, meanwhile, had to prepare her own body to receive this energy. She lay on a raised platform, surrounded by glowing crystals and softly humming machines. Her eyes were closed at first as she tried to steady her racing heart. She had never experienced anything like this, an entirely new form of healing, one that required both courage and trust. She opened her eyes and looked at Kale, drawing strength from his presence. Seeing him calm, confident, and determined gave her hope she had not felt in weeks. As the first part of the transfer began, the room filled with an intense, otherworldly glow. The air seemed to hum with energy, vibrating with the force of the life being shared. Kale felt a strange sensation, warmth spreading through his body, a tingling that was both invigorating and exhausting. He focused on Lysera, imagining her strength returning, her color brightening, and her spirit awakening. He whispered softly, words of encouragement, even though she could not hear him clearly. His determination, his care, and his courage seemed to flow through the energy itself. Lysera felt it too. A gentle warmth spread through her chest, an unfamiliar strength that pulsed through her veins. For the first time in days, she felt a flicker of energy, a glimmer of life returning to her body. Tears filled her eyes, not from pain, but from relief and gratitude. She opened them and met Kale's gaze. Though exhausted, he smiled at her faintly, giving her courage to endure the process. They shared a quiet, wordless connection, one that spoke louder than any words could. The procedure was grueling. Hours passed, each one stretching longer than the last. Kyle's strength began to waver, though he refused to show it. He focused on steady breathing, on keeping the energy flowing, on ensuring that every part of himself reached Lysera. Healers monitored both of them, adjusting instruments, murmuring guidance, and moving with precision. Every small success was a victory, but every moment carried risk. Any misstep could endanger them both. During breaks, Kale and Lysera spoke quietly. They shared small stories, memories from their worlds, and dreams of what life might be like once the process was complete. These moments were precious, reminders of humanity and hope amidst the tension of the procedure. Lysera told him about the rivers of light that flowed across Elisera, about the floating gardens where flowers glowed at night, and about the songs her people sang to welcome the dawn. Kale told her about the blue skies of Earth, the sound of wind through the trees, and the taste of rain after a dry season. Their stories created a bridge between their worlds, weaving trust, understanding, and quiet friendship. As the energy transfer progressed, Kale began to feel the strain more acutely. His muscles ached, his vision blurred slightly, and fatigue pressed down on him like a heavy weight. Yet he refused to stop. He focused on Lysera, imagining her growing stronger with each pulse of life he sent. He knew that his sacrifice was real, that every ounce of energy mattered. And in those moments of pain, he discovered a deeper resilience, a strength he had never realized he possessed. Lysera, too, felt the intensity. Her body, once weak and frail, began to respond to the energy flowing into her. She felt warmth, strength, and vitality returning, but also a strange awareness of the effort Kyle was making on her behalf. She reached out her hand, touching his lightly, as if to give silent encouragement, to share her gratitude in a tangible way. The connection between them became more than energy. It became trust, understanding, and a bond forged under extreme circumstances. The healers observed with awe. They had never witnessed a human endure this process with such focus and courage. Kale's willingness to give so much of himself, to remain steadfast despite the pain and exhaustion, inspired them as much as it inspired the princess. They adjusted their instruments carefully, guiding the energy, ensuring that Lysera received exactly what she needed to survive. Every pulse, every wave of energy was critical. As night fell over Elisera, the procedure entered its most critical stage. Kale was visibly tired, sweat glistening on his brow, yet his gaze remained steady on Lysera. She looked at him with gratitude and admiration, knowing the cost of what he was doing. Her own strength had returned, but she understood that his life force was being depleted in the process. They did not speak, for words seemed inadequate. Instead, they shared a silent understanding, a recognition of courage, sacrifice, and the profound connection that had formed between them. Finally, after hours of intense effort, the first phase of the transfer was complete. Lysera's body had responded well, her color returning, her breathing steady, and her strength renewed. Kale slumped slightly, exhausted but alive. He had given so much, yet the procedure was not over. The final phase would require even greater concentration, endurance, and courage. Both of them knew that the coming moments would test their limits, like never before. Yet even in the midst of uncertainty, there was hope. They had achieved something extraordinary together, a connection that transcended worlds, species, and expectations. They had found courage in each other, hope in the midst of despair, and trust that neither could have anticipated. And as the healers prepared for the next stage, Kale and Lysera held on to that hope, knowing that together they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The day of the final stage had arrived, and the palace was filled with a quiet tension that could be felt in every corner. Elysera's 3 suns hung low in the sky, casting long, shimmering shadows across the crystal spires. The floating gardens glowed softly, as if the entire planet held its breath, waiting for what was about to happen. Kale and Lysera stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by healers, scientists, and the Council of Elders. The moment was both solemn and sacred. Every eye in the room was on them, yet it felt as if the world outside had disappeared. Kale looked at Lysera, who lay on the raised platform, her eyes steady despite the fatigue and worry that lingered in their depths. He could see the trust she placed in him, the hope she clung to, and it strengthened his resolve. He had already given so much of himself during the first stage, but this final part required something irreversible, the deepest reserve of his life force. The healers explained that the energy transfer would push his body to the limit. His survival was not guaranteed. Yet Kyle did not hesitate. He understood that bravery was not measured by victories in battle, but by the willingness to protect others, even at the highest cost. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the instruments and the faint sound of Lysera's breathing. Kale took a deep breath and focused his mind, centering himself as he had done many times before in the heat of battle. This was different, though. This was not a fight against an enemy he could see or strike. This was a battle against time, against nature, against the fragility of life itself. He visualized the energy flowing from him to Lysera, steady, calm, unbroken. Every pulse mattered. Every heartbeat counted. Lysera felt the energy as it began to flow, stronger now than before. She could feel warmth spreading through her chest and limbs, a vibrant force that seemed to restore every part of her body. For the first time in weeks, she felt truly alive. Yet at the same time, she sensed the cost. Kyle's energy was being drawn deeply into her. She could not see the strain on his face, but she felt it in the rhythm of the energy, in the subtle weakening of the pulses that had been so strong before. Her heart ached, not from pain, but from the knowledge of his sacrifice. Kale's body trembled slightly, fatigue pressing on him with an almost unbearable weight. His muscles burned, his vision blurred at the edges, and yet he did not stop. He focused on Lysera, on the life that needed to continue, on the hope that could not be lost. He whispered softly, words meant to encourage, to comfort, and to assure. "Stay with me. You are stronger than you know. I am here." The words were simple, yet filled with the depth of courage and compassion that defined him. The healers watched with awe and concern. They had prepared for the procedure, yet nothing could have prepared them for the depth of Kale's determination. They adjusted instruments carefully, monitoring both bodies, ensuring that the energy flowed in the right direction and at the correct pace. Every movement, every adjustment could mean the difference between life and death. They marveled at the strength of this human, willing to give himself completely for another being, an alien princess from a world they had long thought so different from his own. Lysera, feeling the energy coursing through her, reached out and touched Kale's hand. Her gesture was small but profound, a silent acknowledgement, a bridge of gratitude, trust, and connection. She whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "Thank you for everything." Kyle met her gaze, a faint, tired smile on his face. "No, thanks needed," he whispered back. "All I want is to see you live." As the transfer reached its peak, the room seemed to vibrate with the intensity of the energy. Cale's strength wavered more noticeably now, yet he held on. His breathing grew shallow, his body weakened, and sweat beaded on his forehead. The healers guided him, their voices calm but urgent, helping him maintain focus. Every heartbeat was a struggle, yet his determination never faltered. He could feel the connection with Lysera growing stronger with each pulse, the life force flowing steadily into her, reviving her in ways the healers had only dreamed possible. Lysera's own strength blossomed in response. Her skin glowed with renewed color. Her eyes sparkled with life, and the energy within her felt unstoppable. She could feel Kyle's effort, the sacrifice he was making for her, and it filled her with both gratitude and awe. She wanted to speak, to tell him how much he meant, how much his courage inspired her, but words felt small compared to the enormity of what was happening. Instead, she focused on holding his gaze, giving him silent support, letting him know that his sacrifice was not in vain. Time seemed to stretch, every second feeling like an eternity. The healers and council members watched, holding their breath as the final phase continued. Cale's body trembled with exhaustion, his strength almost gone, yet he refused to surrender. He focused on the princess, on the life he was helping to preserve, and on the hope that together they could overcome the impossible. His determination became a force in itself, guiding the energy, strengthening the connection, and ensuring the procedure's success. Finally, with a last surge of effort, Kyle completed the transfer. Lysera's body shone with vibrant energy, her chest rising and falling steadily, her eyes bright and alive. She had survived. She was healed. And yet, the cost of her survival was evident. Kyle's body slumped, drained, almost completely exhausted. The room remained silent for a moment, the weight of what had just occurred settling over everyone present. The human warrior had given his all, risking his life to save the princess, and the reality of that sacrifice was profound. Lysera rushed to Cale's side, kneeling beside him and taking his hand. You did this for me?" she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Cale managed a faint smile, his strength nearly gone. "I could not let you die. You mattered, more than anything," he said softly. His voice was weak, but filled with honesty, courage, and a selfless love that transcended worlds. The healers quickly moved to support him, ensuring he could breathe and rest. His life was still in danger, but the initial crisis had passed. The energy transfer had succeeded in reviving Lysera completely, stabilizing her body and giving her the strength she had lost. The Council of Elders, once skeptical, now looked on in awe and reverence. They had witnessed an act of courage and sacrifice beyond anything they had imagined. Cale, a human, had risked his very life to save an alien princess, and in doing so had changed the course of history on Lysera. Lysera held his hand tightly, her heart full of gratitude and admiration. "I will never forget this," she whispered. "I will honor you, always." Kyle, exhausted but content, let his eyes close briefly, a faint smile remaining on his lips. Though weakened, he knew he had fulfilled his purpose. He had given everything to protect another life, and in doing so, he had shown what true courage and selflessness meant. The palace, the gardens, the floating rivers of light, they all seemed to shimmer more brightly that night, as if the world itself recognized the extraordinary act that had just taken place. Cale had made the ultimate sacrifice, not yet in death, but in giving so much of himself that his limits had been pushed to the extreme. Lysera's survival was a testament to his bravery, and a reminder that courage and selflessness could transcend even the boundaries of species and worlds. And in that quiet, glowing chamber, as Elysira's 3 moons rose high into the sky, the bond between Kale and Lysira was sealed. It was a bond built on trust, courage, and sacrifice, one that would endure long after the stars had moved across the sky. Together, they had faced the impossible, and together, they had survived. The days after the procedure were filled with quiet recovery and reflection. Lysira's strength returned quickly, her body vibrant and healthy for the first time in weeks. The illness that had threatened to end her life was gone, replaced by an energy that shone from within her. She moved through the palace with renewed grace, her presence radiating both vitality and calm. Yet despite her recovery, her thoughts often returned to Kale. She could not forget the courage, determination, and sacrifice he had shown. Every moment of her regained life was a reminder of his bravery and selflessness. Kale, meanwhile, spent his days regaining strength. Though exhausted and weakened from the procedure, he remained steadfast. The healers monitored him closely, providing care and support, ensuring that the energy transfer had not left any lasting damage. His body slowly regained vigor, but the experience had changed him. He had faced the ultimate test of courage and endurance, and he had emerged alive, having given everything for another being. Yet the greatest reward for him was not recognition or praise. It was knowing that Lysira was alive, thriving, and safe. The bond between the human warrior and the alien princess deepened with each passing day. They shared quiet conversations, laughter, and moments of understanding that transcended words. Lysira often recounted her memories of near despair, and Kyle would remind her of the strength she had shown in enduring the illness. They celebrated small victories together, a walk through the floating gardens, the sight of the glowing rivers, reflecting the suns, and the sound of Elysira's melodies filling the air. Every moment was a reminder that life was precious, and that courage and compassion could overcome even the most impossible challenges. The Council of Elders, once wary of humans and skeptical of Kale's intentions, now viewed him with deep respect. They recognized that he had not only saved the princess, but had demonstrated qualities that were rare even among their own kind. They formally honored him, acknowledging his bravery and the extraordinary sacrifice he had made. It was a historic moment, one that bridged the gap between humans and Elysira's people, creating trust and understanding that would last for generations. Kale accepted the recognition humbly, for he had acted not for glory, but because it was the right thing to do. Lysira, moved by his courage, made a decision that would forever change their relationship. She publicly named Kale her protector and confidant, a title of great honor and responsibility. He would remain at her side, not as a servant or subordinate, but as a partner in guarding her life, guiding her decisions, and sharing in the challenges that came with leadership. The gesture surprised many, yet it was entirely natural for Lysira. She had seen Kale's character, his unwavering loyalty, and his selfless heart. She knew that having him close was not only wise but also comforting. The bond between them grew stronger over time. They trained together, learning from one another. Kale shared human strategies, techniques, and perspectives, while Lysira taught him the ways of Elysira, the wisdom of her people, and the subtleties of leadership in a world very different from his own. They laughed at mistakes, celebrated victories, and supported each other through challenges, forming a partnership that combined courage, intellect, and compassion. Their connection became legendary among both humans and aliens, a story retold as an example of trust, loyalty, and bravery that transcended worlds. News of the extraordinary sacrifice spread across Elysira and beyond. Humans and aliens alike spoke of Kale's courage and the life-saving bond between the warrior and the princess. People marveled at the idea that a human, so different from Elysira's inhabitants, could show such determination and selflessness. His actions became an inspiration, a symbol that courage is not limited by species, strength, or origin, but by the heart and the willingness to act when it matters most. Lysra herself never forgot the lessons she had learned. She led her people with renewed wisdom, understanding, and compassion. She knew that true leadership required not only strength, but also humility, trust, and the ability to recognize the bravery of others. Kale's sacrifice had shown her the power of loyalty, courage, and selflessness, and she incorporated those lessons into her rule. Under her guidance, Elisera thrived, growing stronger, more united, and more compassionate than ever before. Kyle and Lysra also discovered that their bond went beyond survival and duty. It became a deep friendship built on trust, understanding, and shared experiences. They supported each other through personal challenges, celebrated joys, and faced dangers together. Though their lives were vastly different, they found common ground in courage, integrity, and the commitment to protect and inspire others. Their partnership became a living example of what could be achieved when beings from different worlds united for a common purpose. Years passed, yet the story of Kale and Lysra remained alive in the hearts of those who witnessed it. The tale of the human warrior who risked everything to save the alien princess was told to every new generation, reminding everyone of the power of courage, the importance of compassion, and the beauty of selfless acts. Kale's sacrifice was never forgotten, and Lysra's leadership flourished under the guidance of lessons learned from their shared experience. Even in quiet moments, when Elisera's sons cast their golden glow across the crystal spires and floating gardens, Lysra often looked to Kale with gratitude and respect. She remembered the fear, the pain, and the uncertainty, but also the extraordinary courage that had saved her life. Kale, in turn, found satisfaction not in recognition, but in the knowledge that he had done everything he could to protect someone he had come to respect and care for deeply. Their story was not just about survival. It was about the bond between two beings from different worlds, the lessons learned through courage and sacrifice, and the enduring power of hope. Kale had faced the ultimate test, giving so much of himself that he had touched the life of another in a way few could ever understand. Lysra had learned that true strength comes not only from power or intellect, but from the connections we forge and the compassion we show to others. Together they continued to face challenges, not as a princess and a warrior from different worlds, but as allies, friends, and protectors. The memory of the illness that had nearly ended Lysra's life became a reminder of the fragility of existence, the value of trust, and the extraordinary courage that can emerge when hearts are united. Their legacy inspired countless others to act with bravery, kindness, and determination, leaving a mark on both Elisera and the human worlds that would never fade. And so, the tale of the human warrior and the alien princess came to be remembered as a story of ultimate courage, unwavering loyalty, and the deep bonds that can form when beings act selflessly for one another. It was a story that proved life's greatest victories are not always fought with weapons or power, but with compassion, sacrifice, and the courage to protect those we care about most. Kale and Lysra's lives, forever intertwined, stood as a testament to the extraordinary potential that exists when courage and heart guide every choice.